Okay, we have to talk. We have to talk about the situation in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse has now been arrested for murder after shooting people in what is sort of an amalgam of the worst of American culture: gun culture, reactionary culture, police I'm not talking about police, but I'm talking about people like the shooter who sort of idolize and deify police-like figures and want to be out there with firearms, affecting what they believe to be some kind of militia or gatekeeping. I don't even know what to call it. But where I want to start is that what is very clearly, colloquially speaking, murder. It will be up to the legal system to determine if it is legal murder, right? Guilt of murder. But what is colloquially speaking murder? We are starting to see right-wing media implicitly or explicitly defend the actions of 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse. And I want to start with a clip from last night's Tucker Carlson program on Fox News. Take a look at this.
So are we really surprised that looting and arson accelerated to murder? How shocked are we that 17-year-olds with rifles decided they had to maintain order when no one else would? Everyone could see what was happening in Kenosha. It was getting crazier by the hour.
So the argument that's being made to sort of indirectly defend the actions of this kid are that, listen, if you have chaos in the streets and nobody else deals with it, then it's natural that a 17-year-old gun toter is going to start policing the streets. Even if you grant, which I don't, that there is some problem at the country level of the streets being out of control. Remember, overall crime has been on the decline for a long time in the United States. Even if you were to grant that, which I don't, the idea that it's natural for gun-toting 17-year-olds to be the ones policing the streets is absolute and complete lunacy. Now, coverage of this event, if you compare it to other events, has been, unfortunately, the worst of the worst that we could get from right-wing media. And even from so-called not independent media, from so-called nonpartisan media. Remember, for example, that the Jacob Blake story was widely reported on just a couple of days prior. And if you look at, for example, two New York Post tweets, which we are putting up on the screen for you, on the left, the New York Post tweeting about Jacob Blake, who was killed by police. Jacob Blake had a knife in his car when he was shot by police. On the right, the same New York Post with a picture of Kyle Rittenhouse cleaning graffiti tweets, suspected teen gunman Kyle Rittenhouse spotted cleaning Kenosha graffiti before the shooting. Now, no mention of the fact that in Wisconsin, the minimum age to open carry is 18. So shooting aside, what Kyle Rittenhouse was doing was against the law. But of course, I guess nobody stopped him to say, hey, what state are you from? And what age are you? And is it even legal for you to be here with this gun? Remember that when Trayvon Martin was killed by George Zimmerman, he was 17 years old. Corporate media, of course, the right, was very quick to immediately say, he was 17, but this guy was an adult. He was a big, aggressive guy, and he's really an adult, and he should be considered one in his interaction with George Zimmerman. And yet here you have a gun-toting 17-year-old white kid, also 17, like Trayvon Martin. But this one's a kid who was cleaning graffiti. And anyway, like Tucker Carlson says, if the streets are out of control, isn't it natural for gun-toting 17-year-olds to be out there policing? This is crazy. This is crazy. Now, we have now retrospectively found out that this kid, Kyle Rittenhouse, I maybe shouldn't even be saying this kid. He's 17, and the legal system will determine how he should be dealt with. About 2 hours before the first shooting, he was actually interviewed. Rittenhouse was at a Kenosha vehicle dealership by some guy who was live streaming what was going on in Kenosha. Take a look at this.
We're protecting from the citizens, and I just got pepper sprayed by a person in the crowd. So you had non-lethal, but you didn't respond.
We don't have non-lethal.
So you guys are full on ready to defend the property.
Yes, we are. Now, if I can ask, can you guys step back? Medical, EMS right here. I'm an EMT.
Then we had another interview with Kyleittenhouse, who spoke to Richie McGinnis, who's a video editor at the Daily Caller, a right-wing news and opinion site. And again, just stumbling across this gun-toting 17-year-old. Take a look.
What are you doing out here? Obviously, you're armed and you're in front of this business we saw burning last night. So what's up?
So people are getting injured, and our job is to protect this business, and part of my job is to also help people. If there's somebody hurt, I'm running into harm's way. That's why I have my rifle, because I need to protect myself, obviously, but I also have my med kit.
Now, I think that there's a few different things. There's a bunch of stories here. One story, as I've already pointed out, is the immediate media narratives that are created. White kid with the gun. It's just a kid. It's natural that he was out there. He's a good kid. He was cleaning graffiti, etc. Even Jacob Blake immediately. Oh, well, there was a knife in his car. Did police know that at the time? There's, claims about, well, there was a phone call, the police may have suspected, etc. But the handling of these two is completely different, and that's one storyline. The other storyline is this broader narrative, aside from this particular case. It's the broader narrative of Republicans for months now have been harping on the streets are out of control. Joe Biden wants to defund the police, which he doesn't. Everything is going to go completely haywire if Joe Biden is elected. We need the Second Amendment and Joe Biden wants to take it away. And then after all of that, this kid goes out and he actually sort of does what would naturally follow. Remember the concept of stochastic terrorism from months and months of Republicans and Trump and the RNC pushing this exact story. Now, the truth is that very few of the deaths linked to protests have been a result of violence by protesters. That's really, really important to understand, because the rhetoric from Trump and the conservative movement have been painting the picture that protesters protesting against police brutality have gone out there and attacked people and killed people, etc. The reality is that some of these violent events have been linked to movements like the Boogaloo movement, which is a right-wing movement that wants to generate a second civil war. If you look at reviews of the different deaths that have been linked to protests, many of them are either unrelated or unclear if they are related. Myquan Blanchard was shot on May 31st in Riverside, Illinois, by an unknown assailant in an incident apparently unrelated to protests, but it's wrapped in as part of the protest violence. David McAdee shot on June 1st in Louisville. McAdee ran a barbecue store, was shot and killed by members of the National Guard when he apparently fired at them with a handgun. The David Dorn situation from June 2nd in St. Louis. Dorn is this retired police officer allegedly shot and killed by Stephen Cannon as Dorn was responding to an alarm at a friend's business in an area where looting was reportedly happening. Again, it's not the protesters that are out there doing even a lot of the violence that is reported on. So what's dangerous about this is that when you combine this with the rhetoric from the RNC and from Trump and the imagery and claims that Joe Biden is going to let crime run rampant, defund the police, which he doesn't want to do, so on and so forth, what else do you expect? So Kyleittenhouse has personal responsibility here. The legal system is going to adjudicate that for sure. And yet we also can't ignore, without absolving him of any responsibility, the environment in which this is all being ginned up. And we have to think about what this is going to look like on November 4th if Donald Trump loses by a small margin. And that is a real concern, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at David Pakman Show. We'll have more coverage of this upcoming. One of our sponsors today is Vincero Watches, and they're giving you up to 30% off everything in their store when you go to davidpakman.com/watch. If you're looking for an awesome way to update your look, the perfect way to do it is with an elegant, high-quality wristwatch. When there's a company like Vincero, there is no reason to go spending thousands of dollars on a watch. Vincero is an American company that's made it possible to own an excellent watch without breaking the bank. All of their watches are masterfully built with high-end materials, but they're all in the range of about $150 to $250. I just got a watch from their Icon Automatic collection. The one I got is in gunmetal and slate blue. I love the look. It's sleek, classy. It's clear that a lot of careful craftsmanship went into the design. It is definitely my new favorite watch. You'll get up to 30% off everything in their store when you go to davidpakman.com/watch. I've put the link right underneath this video.